Good evening, everyone. It's Monday, September 25th, and this is the meeting of the Development and Government Relations Committee of the Holyoke City Council. I hear a little bit of an echo.
Probably his computer.
Let me go see what's going on.
Oh, I think it's this.
Maybe that laptop sound is on?
Yeah.
Or the,
Okay.
okay.
No,
Nope.
Whose laptop?
it's
Oh, one of the
Thomas
presenters.
Irwin. He's a presenter.
I think that's what's, I know.
That's pretty annoying.
I can power through for right now. Oh, here we go. Can you turn this volume off on your laptop? There's an echo. Thank you. Okay, so this is the...
There's Marisol.
Oh, perfect. All right. Now the gang's all here. Great. Monday, September 25th at 6:33 p.m. We're here in the Holyoke City Council chambers. This meeting is being recorded on Zoom. It's also being live streamed on the city's website, and it is available on the public access station. Thank you, Holyoke Media. So, motion to take item 1 off the table and open the
So moved.
public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. We just had a communication received this afternoon from the applicant that they are requesting that we continue the public hearing. This is the special permit application of Salmar Realty. Peter Martins for a special permit for a proposed coffee shop drive-through restaurant at South Street Plaza, portion of 209 South Street. We've continued this twice, so I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing.
So I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing, but we have to pick a date certain.
Yes. Counselor Bartley?
Yes, so we've done this now 3 times they've been on an agenda, and 3 times they failed to appear. So I am not of the opinion that we should, I assume we're going to meet in October? Mm-hmm. Well, and then we'll probably meet in November.
Yeah.
Let's move them to November, because this is going to happen again and again, and this is on them. So,
that's fine.
So I mean, and just so I can finish, I prepare for these meetings. I read their 128-page application 3 different times. Now, I don't have it memorized, but I've done it for each meeting. It's simply annoying, and it's unprofessional. So I don't really want to deal with them until way down the road. And I know that's in Ward 3, so I don't need special dispensation, but that's why I asked the committee's forbearance relative to that. Thank you.
I'm fine with that. I also am curious, and yeah, I have no objections to going to a November meeting. We will probably meet in October still. But if we have to pick a date to continue it.
What works for you, Madam Chair?
I guess. I could do the 3rd or the 3rd week of November.
The 20th, the Monday?
It's close to.
It's okay. It's okay for me. Linda, you going to Hawaii? How about the 20th, Madam Chair? I like it.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah?
So I'll make a motion that we continue this to November 20th, Monday, at 6:30 p.m.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to hold continue the public hearing to November 20th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Could we also ask Jeffrey to reach out to the applicant?
Yeah,
To get
Jeffrey,
an update?
I'm assuming you've been listening, but if possible.
Just to make it official.
Yeah, and also please give me a heads up if there's any major conflicts we're not foreseeing with Monday, November 20th. But if you could reach out to them and just kind of see what the plan is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let them know as soon as this meeting's over. I'll send them an email to let them know it was continued to the 20th. And there don't appear to be any conflicts on our calendar for the 20th.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Madam Chair, do we want to are we ready for number 2? Or?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I'll make a motion to take number 2 off the table and to open the public hearing.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item 2, special permit application for the home occupation of Marisol Figueroa for a nail salon at 222 West Franklin Street. So I believe we have Marisol on Zoom, maybe. We did.
I saw her.
She was on a minute ago, and it appears she dropped off.
All right.
No.
Well, I can,
We'll just motion to table.
yeah, we can table this for now if she comes
Is
back.
that a motion?
Yeah,
I'll
motion.
second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
I'll make a motion to take number 3 off the table.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 3 is from the Law Department. It is a license agreement for 370 to 396 Main Street. And I just had it here. There we go. So this property, this is very similar to one that we just recently did, but I am going to see if the law department, I see Attorney Bissonette is on the phone, and then I believe that Parth is also here on behalf of the applicant. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Parth?
Thank you.
I'm saying that correctly, right? Parth?
Yep.
Great.
Parth Patel, okay.
Thank you. So the license agreement is between the City of Holyoke and Parth H. Patel with the address of 370 to 396 Main Street in Holyoke. Parth and Attorney Bissonette, do you have any information that you'd like to share with us pertaining to this agreement?
I'm also here, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Joseph.
Hi.
What's your last name, Joseph?
Smith, I'm from Joja Modeling. I'm actually the general contractor who coordinated everything with Chris Baker.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Counselor Bissonette?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
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 As the chair pointed out, this is very similar to the license agreement that was similarly instituted 2 months ago, one that's been in effect for a couple of years. This one is very similar in that it would allow this company to be able to make ADA accommodations through the use of city property, allowing those that want to enter and exit the property to be able to do so in full compliance with federal law. So that's, we're getting a few of these now. Happy to see that companies and property owners are stepping up, but sometimes they need the cooperation and assistance of the City of Holyoke to be able to have permission to go onto city property to be able to set up and accomplish these handicap accommodations.
Thank you, Attorney Bissonette. Counselor Bartley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just through the chair to Mike. Mike, how you doing?
Good evening, Councilor.
Mike, relative to this, there's a provision that says the licensee shall file with the licensor a certificate evidencing such coverage and outlining limits and information relative to coverage for liability insurance. I don't see it attached to this. So have you received a coverage selection page relative to the insurance for this petitioner? Mike, you know,
Declaration sheet.
Mike, when we ask Santa Claus to come, we're going to get you either a better Wi-Fi or an updated computer, because this is like every single meeting. So either that or come to Holyoke.
Can you repeat yourself, please?
Certainly. The situation with, sorry, I'm losing this connection again. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you so much. Sorry for the delay. So the situation here is that the contractor will have to provide the necessary insurance binder and the declaration sheet. Mr. Contractor, did you want to address that?
Yes, when I applied for this with all my notes and everything, I wasn't told by Chris Baker, by Jane, by Mary, anyone that we had to provide anything else other than what we were planning on doing. So I'm pretty unfamiliar with this.
Okay.
I mean, we could do whatever we need to do.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yep. Counselor.
Yeah, just through the chair to Mr. Smith and to Mike. So, Mr. Smith,
Yes.
indemnification hold harmless, it's pretty standard. It's on page 2 of the license. So what you're going to do is take out a policy and you're going to add the city of Holyoke as an additional insured and indemnify the city for any and all work you do, and then any and all issues that may or may not happen on the premises going forward. So you're going to provide that you or Mr. Patel can provide that every year. So if somebody trips and falls on your handicap ramp, they're not going to sue the city of Holyoke for this because you're going to give us a liability and hold harmless. So that's very standard operation. So I mean, as long as I'm confident that you're going to get this to Attorney Bissonnette or the mayor's office in a timely fashion, I've got no problem supporting this. Thank
We
you.
will have it done within the next couple of days, as soon as we can get the insurance company to do the certificate.
Great.
Thank you.
That's great.
And I'm sorry, but you said that was, where can I just reach out to Mary and ask her for the exact,
Yeah, talk to Attorney Bissonnette will help you.
Attorney Bissonnette?
No,
Okay, thank you.
Mary will have it for you in the
Mary?
morning. Yes.
Okay, awesome,
Great.
yes. So as long as we can provide these documents, we'll be able to move forward soon?
Just one more thing.
Yep. Counselor Brennan.
Just to the committee. So this is one of those things that I mention this every time, but it just bears repeating. So this is a license for when we first had a license before us. We had a little bit of a different law department at that time, and they said we don't need a city council to approve licenses. But the provision of mass law is that city council approves anything to do with real estate for the city. Well, the law department says, well, even though this has to do with real estate, it's a license and you don't get a vote. So what we did was Councilor McGivern, Councilor Bacon, a few of us, we passed an ordinance to say, now you have to come before us for a license. Boo-hoo. So that's something that we have to keep, be ever vigilant when it comes to this sort of stuff. So I hope that helps. And then my motion is going to be to grant the license pending proof of full compliance with the license agreement, particularly the certificate of insurance.
I'll second that.
Open for discussion. Anyone? Any other questions or comments? Alrighty. With that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved.
Just a point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
If, just through the chair to Mike. Mike, would you
Yes.
be so kind as to forward that evidence to the chair prior to our next city council meeting, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Be happy to do so.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you,
I
Councilor
have a
Bartley.
question.
Sure.
I apologize. So if we get the documents to Mike Bissonnette or through Mary within the next few days, how soon can we start? Because we're kind of like in a limbo type of thing right now with opening the store.
Sure. So the way that the process works with the city council, tonight we voted in favor in the subcommittee, and then it gets referred to the full city council, which is meeting on Tuesday, October 3rd. And at that meeting is when the full council will vote, and that's when it'll take effect, assuming the council votes in favor.
Okay, thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you.
Excellent summary. Madam Chair, do you want to go back to 2?
Yes, we do have the applicant is here.
I'll make a motion to take 2 off the table.
Second?
Motion to take item 2 off the table. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. So this is motion to open the public hearing for a special permit for the home occupation of Marisol Figueroa for a nail salon at 222 West Franklin Street. Marisol filled out the application and indicated that her expected customer traffic flow is 1 client at a time, so 1 client per hour. It's listed here that the hours of operation are from 9 to 6, Tuesday through Friday, and Saturday from 9 to 3. Indicates on her application there will not be any deliveries. There's not going to be signage. The name of the business is Polished A Salon. And it looks like all the paperwork was signed off related to being in compliance with city taxes. So with that, Marisol, thank you for being here. I want to welcome you and thank you for starting a business. I love small business owners. And just, if you'd like to just briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll open it up for any questions. This is a public hearing, so it's an opportunity for any neighbors or residents to voice their concerns or support. And then we'll just go from there. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. So my name is Marisol Figueroa. I've been a nail tech for over 20 years here in Holyoke. And so I've been working at different salons, like renting space, and I've been thinking of wanting to do this at home. So I do 1 client at a time. So they won't, my driveway, they'll be able to park on my driveway. So they hardly ever, anybody will be parking in the street. Somebody was, I had heard that somebody was a little, like questioning if I was gonna have signage. I prefer not to, so I don't want to do that if I don't have to.
Okay.
So I just be like a home base, so it won't be something that's obvious that we're gonna have people in and out, you know?
Okay,
Like,
great. Anything else you want us to know before we kind of open it up for questions?
nope, that'll be it.
Okay, and it looks like from your application that you're working alone. Is that correct?
Yeah, yep.
So I'm going to pause there, and Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, Marisol. Just a couple quick questions before we start letting the public ask questions. But how much of your residential home will you use for business?
It's a very small room. It'll be like maybe 15 by 12, because it's just me.
Well, your application, that's a good point, because your application is only for 1 person, which is yourself. So you're not going to hire anybody to work with you.
No.
Okay. And the product that you use, where will you store that?
The product that I use?
Yep.
Well, I keep whatever, like, it's only me, so I don't have a ton of stuff. But everything is like the gallons that I have, I store them in the basement. I've always stored them in the basement all these years that I've been doing it.
And final question, is your plans to someday, in a commercial setting, commercial zoning, open up a business?
No.
So you plan to do this out of your residential home indefinitely?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just through the chair to the applicant. Marisol, I'm Dave Bartley, so nice to meet you through the computer. And first off, I want to compliment you because I see that you own the house, and it looks like to me that you paid off your mortgage too. So that's pretty impressive if I have that right. So I really, as I say to everybody that comes here, we really appreciate your investment in the city of Holyoke. So that's important. Relative to the parking situation, so when it comes to these permits, parking, noise, traffic lights, that's basically what the issues are every single time. So in this case, when we make the motion I hope to be approving this, we're going to make a motion that your customers park in your driveway always, and you're good to go with that.
Yes.
Okay. Second off, I'm going to make a motion that you have no signage whatsoever. And it sounds like you're okay with that already.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Third of all, Councilor McGivern raised a very good point that a portion of your premises are going to be commercial. So so that portion is now going to be subject to the commercial tax rate for the city of Holyoke. So I hope you're aware of that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so this will also get referred to the assessor's office, and there'll be, there's going to be a slight adjustment in your quarterly bill. So just be aware of that as well. Okay. All right. So those are. I'll hold off any other motions and all that till you hear from the public. Thank you.
I'm all set.
You good? Okay. So I'm not seeing any. Oh, just kidding. I see a hand. Counselor Israel Rivera.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for investing in Holyoke and taking the leap of investing in your own self, right? At the end of the day, we always are trained, or a lot of us are trained to work for someone else. And eventually you get to the point where you finally get to that level where you can work for yourself and provide that income for you and your family. So congratulations on that. Do your own thing. That's awesome. I think for me, it's I just want to know if in the past, and this is not for the person that's applying, this is actually for like the law department and for my fellow counselors. In the past, how many other people have gone through this same process? And like, I'm just trying to get like more familiarity about how when someone is doing something like this out of their own house or their own premises or domicile, and like restricting, how do you say it, the parking piece. I totally understand the in and out. We don't want in and out on a regular basis because this is residential, but I don't know how we could tell someone that people can't park on public street parking. That's the only thing for me, right? Like that, I think that's kind of like us telling someone that they can't park somewhere, but it's public parking. So that piece for me is that what I'm trying to figure out, and which is not for the applicant, more for Mr. Bissonnette. And like historically, I guess maybe we have done it that way, but like, how can the council tell someone they can't park somewhere that's public parking? So I think that piece for me is the part that I'm trying to figure out.
For sure. Counselor McGivern actually might have a response to that.
Just, no, it's a fair question.
Yeah.
Both the applicant and to Councilor Rivera. Home occupations are special. They're designed because we know people work out of their homes a lot more than they did 20 years ago, but they're designed to protect, number one, the residential neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So on-street parking in a two-family, three-family, even single-family neighborhood, don't always have the off-street parking to accommodate the people that live in that neighborhood. So that's why when we talk to the applicant, we sometimes like to be able to say we're going to limit parking for your customers in your driveway. And then there's no question that the people who live in the neighborhood who park on the street or their guests park on the street can park there. It's, you can't stop people from parking there, but you can stop a home occupation permit if it's not abided by with any, if there are any added amendments to it. Again, I think Marisol's answered all our questions, perfectly. It sounds like she wants to protect her neighbors, and she just wants to do in a small portion of her house the work that she does. Working from home is not a bad thing, but we have to protect the residential neighborhood, number one. So home occupations aren't a guarantee, and then, of course, we're going to listen from the neighborhood in a minute to see what the neighbors think about this, but I think getting it all out in the open is important, and restricting certain things is part of what we are allowed to do if we see there's a reason.
Thank you. Okay, so now I see Karen Arbel. Can you state your address for the public hearing?
254 Locust Street.
Thank you. Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
So feel free to share your thoughts or questions or concerns.
Absolutely. So I'm actually right around the corner from Marisol's house. And I've personally known Marisol for over 20 years as a business person and a friend. And I can very well attest to the fact that she is 110% very particular in how she runs her business, takes care of her customers, handles her her supplies, and so forth. And the fact that it is a nail salon does not bother me one single bit. If anything, I more than appreciate the fact of how this is being handled appropriately and being addressed to the neighborhood so that we can voice our opinions. Versus other things that have happened in this neighborhood over the last few years that we weren't given the opportunity to voice our opinion. Marisol she's got a very good client base. They are very responsible people, as is she. And I can tell you right now, there is not going to be a lot of coming and going. It's going to be one person at a time, just as she said. Whether they park in the street or her driveway, I guarantee you there is not going to be any commotion. Marisol, I want a free pedicure after this. No, seriously, no seriousness, really. I've known this girl for such a long time. I guarantee you there would be no regrets to the neighborhood. She is handling this A+. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have the neighbors give their voice.
Thank you.
You will not regret this, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Love to hear it. Are there any other members of the public in council chambers right now that are here to speak specifically for this public hearing?
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we grant the special permit with the following conditions. One is that the hours will be Tuesday to Friday, 9 to 6, and Saturday, 9 to 3. Second off, that there will be no signage. Third off, that all customers will park in her driveway, which is off-street parking, to the extent feasible.
I'll second that.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Marisol.
Thank you.
And thank you for your investment in the city, and best of luck. We appreciate when folks take the steps to do business the right way, so we appreciate that. Thank you.
Marisol, can we just let her know? We vote on this at the full city council next week. The city clerk gets it a day later, but the city clerk needs a 2 or 3 days to get your permit ready to pick up. So just touch base with the city clerk when it's available.
Okay.
Please.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to take number 4 off the table, please.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to take item number 4 off the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. All right, so item 4 is filed by Councilor Rivera, ordered that we invite Thomas Irwin from PaintCare MA to discuss pending state legislation that would create a statewide paint recycling program to allow people to return unused paint to stores to be disposed of in an environmentally friendly way. So this evening, we're joined by Thomas Irwin, and I don't know if... Councilor Rivera, do you want to say anything as the maker of the order?
No, you set it off. You did good.
Thanks so much. Okay, great. Mr. Irwin, thank you for being here this evening. As you can see, we've got a very well-rounded agenda this evening. So we'd love to just hear from you, briefly about what this program is and why we should be aware of it. And then we'll give some time for counselors to ask questions. I also just want to acknowledge, in addition to the members of this committee, we are joined on Zoom by Councilor PUELLO, Councilor Maldonado-Velez, Councilor Givner, and Councilor Rivera, Israel Rivera. So with that, Mr. Irwin, why don't you tell us why you're here this evening? Oh, and actually, I'll just let you know, make sure you got to push the button on the microphone. If it's lit up green, that means it's on, and that means everyone at home can hear you. So just make sure that that's on.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair. I need a little help from Jeffrey because I need to share my screen.
Okay.
And on the particular rendition of Zoom that I have, sharing option is not available.
Check again. You're good.
Looks like you might have bumped out, so I just have to set you up as a co-host again.
No worries. Thank you.
All right, you should be all set.
Okay, great. Thank you. Showing up yet.
Looks like you're no longer on Zoom.
Jeffrey, could you give me a little hand?
Oh. Oh. Jeffrey, is that what you're saying?
So you're back on in the attendees. You have to accept that invite again to become a panelist.
Okay.
Are you seeing? Okay. All right, and you are a co-host, so you should see
I do see share on the bottom.
Yep.
and I'll click that.
And then you'll have your.
There we go.
That looks promising.
Okay.
There we go.
And then, yep,
Okay.
Good.
Business.
ready to go.
All right, excellent. Good evening. Thank you for this meeting where we will discuss a valuable opportunity to begin decreasing solid waste in Massachusetts through supporting the enactment of a paint stewardship law. Today, we will be reviewing the solid waste crisis, product stewardship in general, and the potential benefits of paint stewardship for our state. My name is Tom Irwin. I'm a retired engineer and physician who, while a member of the Waste Management and Recycle Committee in Dalton, Mass., learned of paint stewardship during a tour of the transfer station in Clifton Park, New York, loved the idea, did some research, and am now acting as an advocate for this environmental legislation in our Commonwealth along with 3 other concerned individuals. As you likely know, we have a trash disposal crisis in Massachusetts. For years, disposal capacity in New England has been shrinking. In Massachusetts, we throw away approximately 5.2 million tons of trash annually. You might ask, where does it all go? We have 5 municipal waste combustors with an annual capacity of approximately 3.2 million tons. The rest goes to landfills. With the anticipated closure of most of our landfills accepting municipal solid waste by 2030, and no new disposal facilities coming online, it's likely our annual solid waste landfill capacity will dwindle to only 60,000 tons. This means more and more of our trash is getting exported farther and farther away where land is more plentiful. But this practice is expensive, has a large carbon footprint, and it leaves us vulnerable to a system that is out of our control. Simply put, our trash exports over the next 7 years will increase to nearly 2 million tons per year unless we reduce our waste significantly. Presently, waste reduction in Massachusetts is not keeping pace sufficiently with the reductions in capacity we are experiencing. Also concerning, in recent years, the per ton disposal costs in Massachusetts have risen by about 30 to 35%, and in some situations more. Product stewardship is a solution with a track record of success. It is an environmental policy tool where responsibility is shared for products at their end of life between those who produce, sell, and use a product. This focuses on maximizing reuse as much as possible. The greatest responsibility generally lies with the producer of the product, though all within the product chain of commerce have roles. This approach relieves the government of end-of-life management responsibilities and provides sustainable funding through a fee paid at time of product purchase. To date, 33 states have such enacted product stewardship laws and include 18 product categories covering such items as electronics, mercury devices, paint, packaging, batteries, pharmaceuticals, mattresses, and carpets. Massachusetts has 2 such laws, but it is currently lagging far behind most of our neighboring states. For example, Maine and Vermont each have 9 product stewardship laws, including Maine's most recent law covering packaging. The current 23-24 legislative session includes product stewardship bills for paint, mattresses, and packaging and printed paper. Taking a closer look at these bills, we see that paint stewardship has been proven in other states. The 3 proposed paint bills have minimal differences. There are minimal opposition, and there's strong, united legislative support. However, the annual municipal savings are only $2 million, meaning its overall impacts is seemingly small, thus hard to get legislative attention. Mattress stewardship has higher estimated annual savings of $10 million, has been proven in other states as well, but there are competing bills and divided legislative support. Finally, with very attractive savings of $250 million per year, packaging and printed paper stewardship, though recently passed in 4 states, has yet to be proven in the U.S., though it is proven in other countries. It has competing bills, strong stakeholder opposition, and divided support. Hence, a consideration of the likelihood of each of these bills passing shows that the only bill with strong potential to pass this session of the legislature is a paint stewardship bill. Therefore, at this time, the Mass Product Stewardship Council's goal for this session of legislature is to have the paint stewardship legislation passed and to begin the discussion with the legislators and municipal leaders about the need for the other two programs. Let's take a look at the nuts and bolts of how paint stewardship will work if passed. First, our part as consumers to help make the paint stewardship function will be to pay somewhere between 75 cents and $1 for every gallon of paint that we purchase at the time of purchase. Once a painting project is complete and you find you have paint you wish to discard, all you will need to do is bring the remaining paint to a participating retailer any day they are open, place the paint on their counter, pay nothing, thank them, and go home. Of note, old paint in your cellar or garage is covered with no fee to discard in much the same way. The retailer will put the paint in a tote, and when the tote is full, call PaintCare, the nonprofit created by the paint manufacturers to haul and reprocess unused paint in states with paint stewardship laws. Typically, PaintCare, within 2 to 4 days, will drop off an empty tote and bring the full tote to a reprocessing facility. The reprocessing facility will then reblend somewhere between 85 and 95% of the latex for reuse and then sell it to Habitat for Humanity and resellers like Restore. The oil-based paint will be burned as a fuel in an industrial furnace with particulate filters to avoid pollution. The metal cans will be recycled in the metal recycle stream for an effective 0.5% reduction in the total waste going to our landfills. The government's part, they simply review the third-party audit of PaintCare to assure that PaintCare is truly operating as a nonprofit and that PaintCare is reprocessing the recycled paint as we have described. It is important to note, no retailer or transfer station is required to participate as a PaintCare collection site. All participants need to request involvement by submitting a one-page simple form available on the PaintCare website. When I visited retail collection centers in Vermont, New York, and Connecticut, I wanted to know what concerns they had about the program, and the answer from every one of them was simply none. I then asked what questions they heard about the program from consumers, with their most frequent questions listed here. The answers to the first 3 questions are all yes. For the 4th question, to the frustration of consumers, they will still be referred to household hazardous waste days. For towns considering participation of their transfer station, their concern has been whether there will be any change to the onerous special regulations for paint collection at transfer stations. The answer is that PaintCare negotiates with the state's DEP for substantially reduced requirements, which has successfully done in all participating states, including our neighbors. When I visited small paint retailers in Berkshire County, where I live, to learn whether they had any concerns after I told them about PaintCare, their key concern was the last question, which interestingly varies by company providing the recycle service from 1 to 2 days in New York to 3 to 5 days in Connecticut. Recolor is the used paint reprocessor in Massachusetts, located in the eastern part of the state. Their pickup interval is unknown, but very likely will be consistent with other states, somewhere between 1 and 5 days. Both liquid latex and oil-based paints are hazardous, and eliminating these from our waste stream is essential. 10% of all paint goes unused. Annually in our state, 11 million gallons of architectural paint is sold, which will then generate 1.1 million gallons of unused paint that needs to be discarded, and in Holyoke's case will represent 6,500 gallons of paint needing to be recycled annually. Currently, without cost-free disposal, compliance is less than desirable for these hazardous materials. Making the obvious key benefit of paint stewardship the reduction of hazardous waste going to our landfills, and of course improving compliance will result from PaintCare's convenient disposal system. Additional benefits include a cost savings to towns from reduced household hazardous waste volumes and from a 0.5% reduction in total solid waste, thereby reducing hauling costs. Between 85 and 95% of unwanted latex can be reprocessed, which will generate approximately 990 gallons of reprocessed latex en masse annually. By recycling the unused paint rather than purchasing fresh paint, the effect is to decrease the greenhouse gases generated by the paint industry by a full 4%. This bill is a very important first step and may also serve as a roadmap for future product stewardship legislation. Potential concerns. The paint stewardship bill has been brought before the Massachusetts legislature for the last 10 to 12 years and died each time in committee. The objections or issues that may have resulted in the bill not being sent to the legislative floor beyond its small $2 million savings are unclear. However, we will consider a few items that have been suggested in the past as possible concerns. For instance, is there any potentially unfair imposition on any party to the bill? Of note, all parties to the bill have been involved in the creation of the bill, are supporters of the bill, and have noted no issues. Next, it has been suggested in the past that paint stewardship might put existing in-state paint reprocessors out of business. But in actual fact, PaintCare turns to these businesses like Recolor in Hanover, Mass., and hauling distances are much less. Another rumored concern is that non-big box paint retailers like Ace, True Value, Carr, or Sherwin-Williams will be disadvantaged by the law and will be compelled to participate whether they wish to or not, which is not true, as we've already discussed. In fact, all paint retailers in Connecticut, New York, and Vermont that I have spoken to have found the program requires minimal effort and actually increases their foot traffic, which they all love. The final potential concern is that paint producers of the state will profit from the fee charged to consumers. But PaintCare is a nonprofit organization that cannot make a profit from the PaintCare fee, which the state will confirm through auditing annually of PaintCare's books. Consumers in our neighboring states find the minimal fee charged is more than offset by the ease of discarding paint. Our neighboring states all feel that PaintCare is a clear benefit. Next steps. Currently, the 4 members of the Paint Stewardship Advocacy Group, with which I'm a part, are working throughout the state to generate support. Presently, there are 23 co-sponsors of the House bill and 9 co-sponsors of the Senate bill, with several more actively considering becoming co-sponsors. However, to improve the chances this legislation passes this session, many more are needed. Therefore, please consider requesting your state representative Patricia Duffy and your state senator John Bellis join this important cause that will certainly benefit Massachusetts and its residents. The bill is presently before the Joint Environment and Natural Resources Committee. Historically, the Paint Stewardship Bill is viewed favorably by the E&NR Committee and sent to the Ways and Means Committee. When the bill arrives at the Ways and Means Committee, it is important to have as many letters as possible from municipalities encouraging the committee to view the paint stewardship legislation favorably and send it to the legislative floor for a vote. Please consider Holyoke supporting this effort with a letter in the future. Our goal, a benefit for all, paint stewardship for Massachusetts in 2024.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. Do we have any questions from council members, committee members, or on Zoom? I offered, yeah, I did that before. Anyone? Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Chair Murphy Ramaletti. Tom, excellent. Thank you for the presentation, very detailed, and certainly something that seems to be worthy on all phases. The only part I missed was the 75 cents or $1 per gallon.
Yep.
Is charged by the retailer, by the
Yes.
dealer.
Correct.
Do they keep the 75 cents or does it go to?
PaintCare.
Okay. So when they collect the paint to go to PaintCare, are they paid for their efforts, or is it?
They consider, I have communicated with the leadership of Aubuchon Hardware in particular, and with Car Hardware. And their view of it is It's part of customer service, and it requires such minimal effort. They have a tote in the back typically, and they stack the cans in the thing. It's a simple phone call stacking. They find it no issue at all. So they're happy with the arrangement.
Sounds great. Thank you.
And the 75 cents, I don't know what the interval is, but once they've collected a blob of it on a monthly or biweekly or however basis, it all gets shipped off to PaintCare.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, just through the chair to the maker. Tom, I just wanted to check, who's paying the fee?
We pay it all when we go in and buy our gallon of paint.
So the consumers.
Yes.
So when I buy a gallon of paint, there's going to be a. So what happens in other states? Is it itemized on a receipt?
In order for this thing to work well and not become so burdensome and complicated, PaintCare basically can't manage it anymore. The bills are essentially identical from state to state to state. The fees may vary a little bit because of peculiarities within the state, and that's why the 75 cents to the dollar range. But typically, it's going to be almost guaranteed. It's going to be 75 cents in this state, and it's a fee you pay at the point of purchase. Hopefully, that answers your question.
Yeah. So it's and is that something that has to be in other states? Is it disclosed?
Yes, it's always. If you go and try to buy the paint online, you say where it's going to ship to, and they put the 75 cents there right out in the open. It's a fully visible charge. There's no hidden nothing about it.
Okay. And then other communities, say Dalton, for example, where do residents of Dalton drop off their? What do they do with the paint now?
With the latex, they have to dry it out and put in kitty litter or whatever to solidify it, and then throw it in their trash. And when it comes to oil-based paints, they have to wait for once a year when we have household hazardous waste day, wait in line and drop it off, pay whatever it is that they pay to get rid of it.
Right, so that's the argument. So it's already costing them more than that as it is. So in Holyoke residents, as I'm sure you're not familiar, but we have a disposal. A weekend now, it's only Tuesday, Thursdays, but we can bring all the paint cans and all the paint thinners that we want.
Yep.
Just drop them off. And a homeowner with a residential card can do it 7 times a year. And I think Councilor Bacon would probably know this better than me, but we passed an ordinance. Again, these are some of the things we've done to allow renters to do the same thing, to do bulk drop-off as well. So there's a card system. Doesn't cost anything, just so a renter can go pick up a card, and a homeowner just gets it. They just pick it up. That's all they do, a property owner. So for a Holyoke resident, in other words, this costs us the time to drop it off.
I attended your household hazardous waste day this past Saturday to collect signatures in support of the bill. So I got some familiarity with your program, and I think it's lovely.
Wonderful.
I'm jealous, as a matter of fact.
Wonderful. Last comment is that this is a major task by you, obviously a very educated person, and to drive around from Dalton to Holyoke to wherever else you're going. So that takes a lot of effort, and you got a lot of commitment, a lot of sincerity. So I'll just give you my 2 cents of advice. Writing a letter is great. One of the things that we quite often do, however, and maybe the maker of the order can assist you with this, or you can assist the maker and you can have it be filed, but we quite often propose resolutions. And resolutions can be a documented full vote of the city council, and once that's passed, it is forwarded to the clerk, and the clerk will forward it to the chair of that committee, to Mr. Vilas, to Mrs. Duffy, to you, wherever. So that's kind of how we do it. And sometimes that has a slightly better impact, not much, than a letter.
I think it's fine.
I thought you would, so that's why I suggested it.
Don't forget the governor.
Mrs. Healy? Oh, she would read it. She's been to Holyoke many times.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from councilors? I'm not seeing any.
Motion is complied with.
And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you very much for taking the time tonight.
I'm available for any questions on subsequent days that you folks might have questions. Please feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to take number 5 off the table.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. The motion is to take item number 5, filed by Councilor Puello, that Nueva Esperanza please be invited to present their plans to the public for their $150,000 ARPA award and El Mercado space renovation and tracking. And so this evening, we're joined by representatives of Nueva Esperanza. I'd love to, you guys are welcome to come in or stand, whatever you prefer. And I'll first allow the maker of the order to introduce the order itself and anything else you want to add if you'd like. Councilor Puello.
I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chair. I can wait.
Okay, sounds good. Welcome. You want to state your name and just address for the record and who you're with, and then, yeah, we can go from there. Sure. Just, there's a switch, like,
Side,
on the side, kind of, like on
on the tops.
Despite what people say, we don't bite if you come in.
You really can come in if you want.
I'm happy to stand. I've been
Okay,
sitting
all
all
right.
day.
I respect that. I get it.
Good time to stand. So my name's Steve Huntley. I'm Executive Director of Valley Opportunity Council. I'm also Board Treasurer at Nueva Esperanza. I figured I'd come up first because Valley Opportunity Council actually applied for the resources for ARPA to help Nueva Esperanza. Address 35 Mount Carmel Ave, Chicopee, Mass.
Thank you. Okay. So VOC applied for the funds. So, and the funds were awarded to VOC then?
Yes.
Okay, so VOC.
Okay. Do you want to just talk briefly about what the plans are for the project, or?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we applied for substantially more than what we were awarded, as you all probably know. So we're still in the process of figuring out what we can do to maximize the investment of $150,000. And I should pause and say I'm here. Obviously, Kayla Rodriguez, Executive Director of Nueva Esperanza, is here, and some board members and supporters are also here because we're very appreciative of the $150,000. And we've had maybe 4 meetings, maybe more, to talk about where we want to target the $150,000 to maximize what we can do to the Mercado space. HVAC has come up number 1. I think it's safe to say we need to replace and update the really old and marginally functional HVAC. So that'll be the first thing we've come to agreement on. There's some structural concerns in the building. There's some cleaning up that we want to do, refreshing, improving, things of that nature. So the goal is to make it a cultural hub. And the focus of Nueva Esperanza, and Kayla speaks more eloquently than I about it, but is arts and culture in and around the Main Street corridor. So the recent work is, of course, Fiesta Patronalis is a Nueva Esperanza event, and the first round of, what's the billboard? Beyond Walls. Mm-hmm. Those were also a Nueva Esperanza project, the first dozen or so of those installations that were done. Nueva invested $24,000 of its own money to make sure that that project was a success. So Nueva is committed to the arts and culture in the Main Street corridor, and this is a way to give space, updated space, cool or warm space, depending on the time of the year for those sorts of endeavors.
Great, thank you. I'm going to pause there. Kayla, do you want to add anything? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, just want to give you the opportunity. Okay. Yeah. Just say your name and your title and address.
So I'm Kayla Rodriguez. I'm the Executive Director at Nueva Esperanza, 401 Main Street in Holyoke. So real quick, what they wanted me to mention is the fact that the City of Holyoke's OPED department created the Corazon Project, Heart of Holyoke, a couple of years ago, and Nueva Esperanza is currently managing it. So we work very well and very closely with this department with the Corazon Project. Yes, it targets Main Street, but we're also expanding a little with this project. So that's the arts and cultural is not just down there, it's all Holyoke, but we are very invested in the arts and culture. So not just with the murals, but with beautifying the city and bringing a lot of events and cultural events, period. So
Thank you.
that was it. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm going to pause and see if anyone has any questions. Councilor Puello.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So first, I guess I'll thank everybody from Nueva for coming down and for giving someone of the presentation. I was kind of hoping for, and I also want to thank Nueva for all the work because they definitely do a lot of things around the neighborhood. I mean, we heard about the El Corazon and the mural and all the arts, and I think that that's a beautiful thing. But specifically related to the 150,000 and the El Mercado renovations, I think it'd be really helpful if they would just provide, some kind of overview. So I think I heard HVAC, I think I heard structural concerns. So in reviewing the application, I think that they had originally requested, I think it was about $1 million. And so the goal with this order is really just, and we understand that the mayor has oversight to, handle the ARPA funds however he wants, but I think it's important that we just kind of watch it and see, who's awarded these awards. And I'm really appreciative of the council's recommendations. I voted for them. I thought they were good. ARPA wasn't, or Nueva's 150 wasn't on that voted recommendation, but that's okay. I'm just hoping that maybe we can hear more about how they want to spend that money. Because if they didn't get the $1 million that they want, I mean, I hope that we're not just going to go out and find things to spend the 150 on because we have to, because if we recall that meeting, there's a lot of important things that were passed over. And I think if we can maximize that money in whatever way we can, and I'm sure Nuevo will agree, because again, they've done so much for the community, I just think that that's important to highlight. So again, if we could just maybe, find out more about how we're planning on spending that. And, we appreciate everything you guys do. And yeah, thank you.
Steve, do you want to respond?
So we don't have that information yet, is really the best way to answer it. We're trying to figure out what the best approach to spending the money is.
Yeah.
We had a plan for something around $1 million and we got 150,000. So we're trying to efficiently look at the building, efficiently look at other sources and other opportunities to see if there's ways that we can take the 150,000 to leverage other money. But we don't have anything that we can talk about publicly. We don't have any votes on it just yet. We're still doing due diligence to figure out where to go. I mean, we're happy to come back and talk about it at a later time. We found out a couple of weeks ago about this. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. And I will also throw out just a quick question. You mentioned other folks that received ARPA money, and I just don't see them on the agenda. And I wonder if they're coming to another meeting or what the intention of just Nueva is coming, being the only organization called out for ARPA resources to ask where the money's going. At a very premature part, we don't have to commit the money until January 1st, and it is September 25th. Mm-hmm. So we shouldn't be rushing to have all the answers today. We should be taking our time. We should be looking at other opportunities. That's the responsible approach to this, in my humble opinion, and that's what we're doing. So we don't have all the answers just yet.
Thank you, Steve. First I saw Councilor Rivera, then Councilor Bartley, Councilor Puello, and then Councilor, I thought you had your hand up, sorry.
Listening.
Okay, so first, Councilor Rivera.
Thank you. I want to thank, first of all, for the representatives for being here. Well, I also want to thank the treasurer, Steve Hundley. Kudos to you for standing up for and actually making a point out of a situation to me that kind of doesn't make sense. There were a variety of different people or organizations, and not only organizations, but also private entities that were awarded funding. And I only see one of them in front of us to be asked questions about their funding. I'm for it to ask funding if we're ask questions if we're going to ask questions for everyone. For me, that makes sense, right? If we're going to do it, we do it the same for everyone across the board instead of just singling out a particular organization or a particular business. I guess I'm surprised that it's not the same order wasn't filed for the parking lot, right? It's kind of the same concept in a sense where we're giving ARPA funding to help advance a project for an entity that's actually helping the community, right? The parking lot was great. I voted yes for it because I think it's a great idea. It's the same conceptual concept here for Nueva Esperanza, I think, right? Where we're trying to invest in some of the stuff that's happening downtown and helping the people that are investing in the downtown area to try to meet, I guess, or make ends meet, for lack of better terms, right? Those buildings, particularly in that particular area on Main Street, are very, very old. And they're gonna need help regardless when it comes to updating those buildings. Any of these buildings, if you don't have millions of dollars on that Main Street corridor or High Street, there's no way that you're gonna be able to upgrade your buildings unless you partnering or you're getting huge funding. So I guess for me, hopefully you're able to use the 150 to leverage other funding that can help out meet the goals that you're trying to meet. And hopefully you can put an HVAC system or something that can help out get things going and moving forward. Nueva's not a new organization. They're not new to Holyoke. They've been in Holyoke for about at least 30 years, I would say. And they've been fighting, doing the same stuff for decades now. I guess it's only fair for this organization or an organization similar to this to begin to receive funding as well at this capacity. But yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Bartley.
Hi, yes, through to Chair Steve, thanks for being here. But you've been here many times. So Kayla, you've been here more than once too, and the committee members too. So everything is not a conspiracy, okay? Great. Everything is not a gotcha. Any counselor at any time has every right to file any order relative to the city of Holyoke. Frankly, I didn't think about it, but I see you apply. You wanted 1.1 million, you got 150. Now, we could talk about the entity over on Suffolk Street that wanted 2 million and they got 2 million. And that's been sitting there doing what it's been doing since the 1990s, early 1990s. Now, I could talk about that, and at one point I will talk about it, not tonight. So I don't, look at it this way. The order's a respectful order. It's been a respectful conversation. It's just trying to talk it out a little bit. Now, why somebody files a particular order, I didn't ask, but I didn't co-sign it either. So, but we're just here dealing with it. So I, for one, am happy to have you come in as often as you want and tell us about it. And you should be proud of the work you do. And you should brag about it and come back once you get the work done. Why don't you come and tell us more about it? That's how I look at it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor.
Deal.
Councilor Puello.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think Councilor Bartley said what I wanted to say. I mean, look, I'm not trying to come out here swinging. I'm the Ward 2 councilor, right? And Nueva's pretty popping down there on Main Street. And so when we heard about the award, I definitely got some questions about people. They said, well, how's this money going to be used down for Nueva on Main Street that I live right next to and we have all these events at? So, I didn't think it would be unreasonable. And by the way, I have asked questions on particularly, and maybe we'll file some orders to see, I don't know. But there's definitely other ARPA awards, like Councilor Bartley mentioned, that I think deserve some more conversation. And I filed an order last year regarding the business ARPA award grant. We had a beautiful conversation about that in finance. So, yeah, I mean, that definitely, please don't feel singled out. I'm just trying to have a respectful conversation on this, just to see how this money is going to be used and how the space is going to be renovated.
Thank you, Councilor Puello. And I'll also just add, this process is very similar to community development block grants, and it's federal funding, and there is a lot of oversight. So I trust that your everyone's working closely with the Office for Community Development and the different offices that are involved. And I'm personally looking forward to seeing what you can do with that. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Chair Murphy-Ramboletti. Appreciate it. Steve, thanks for coming down and speaking tonight. As David said, you've been here before us many times, and what a remarkable facade the VOC opportunity has here on High Street. When you think about, I look at ARPA money as federal revenue sharing money, similar to block grant monies. And although ARPA, I think, has been a mystery to some of us, it's certainly what we're learning has been put to good use. And I think this is a great one. Kayla, that man over there, Mr. Vega, can tell you how long I've been knee to knee and deep with Nueva, and it's something that over the years has been part of what I call South Holyoke, and I'm glad to hear Nueva's expanded and that it's not just South Holyoke anymore, and I think that's very important. Not that I have anything against Nueva. There was a certain gentleman that was an activist that might have said something different if he was still with us, but that's okay. Nueva's great. As is I don't know what we call it these days, One Holyoke. I still say Old Holyoke Development. There's plenty of need and there's plenty of room in Holyoke for everyone to participate, and we need more federal dollars. There was a time 30 years, 40 years ago, federal revenue sharing wasn't just about Nueva, Valley Opportunity, Old Holyoke Development. It was also about taking care of DPW issues, streets and sidewalks, infrastructure, public safety, schools. It was a lot of things that we had a lot more federal revenue sharing. ARPA came quickly. I think we all know why. And you had to dive in and see if you get a piece of the pie. And that's the part that is a little bit confusing to me, but the dollars are dollars and you guys are putting them to good use. I love the murals. Is the moose considered a mural? Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm in awe at that one, but they're all wonderful, And every time I'll go down there just to take a turn off of Main Street just to look at that moose, because I don't think any city has the moose, and Holyoke is always special.
You really see something different every time you look at that.
Mm-hmm.
It scares me, but I love it. Yeah. But thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
I'm going to make, after that comment, I'm going to make a motion that's complied with.
Great. So there is a second. Awesome. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you all for being here and for all the work that you do in our community. And we love the murals. We love the art. It's good. Can't wait to
Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you.
And all sorts of things. I'll make a motion to take number 6 off the table.
Motion to take item 6. Is there a second?
Second.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to take item 6, that the city council approves the resolution for the certified project application and tax increment financing TIF agreement with Sublime Systems LLC for the purpose of the company's acquisition, development, and investments at properties on Water Street. The properties are identified as Water Street parcel 002A, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, and 26 Water Street. We are joined this evening by our friends, our fearless team at the Office of Planning and Economic Development, and we also have some representatives from Sublime. So thanks everyone for being here. I'm gonna let
the Dog and Pony Show start?
Yeah, I'm going to let you guys kick it off. Planning and Economic Development will obviously allow our guests here to introduce themselves, and then we'll just go from there for questions.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, both here and online. In lack, or I guess in view that we don't get a lot of revenue sharing from the federal government, our job is to bring in more tax-paying entities and get some underutilized properties back on the tax roll. And one way that we're able to do that as large companies and large projects, as you all know, is one of the tools in the toolbox is the TIF. And so for folks living at home or watching at home, just real quickly, any TIF project is on the new value. So the current tax bills will need to be paid. It doesn't take away the new tax bill. And what we do is incrementally build in the new value. And so we're really excited tonight to talk to you about Sublime, very innovative company based here in Massachusetts, really sort of focusing on what we've been doing in OPED of late, of trying to build on the sort of tech companies, especially with a view on hard tech and a view on economic and, environmentally friendly companies. Obviously, having Holyoke Gas and Electric as one of our assets is really critical when companies try to produce green products. Already starting with green energy is a huge uptick in that. And so, working with Sublime, we have representatives from Sublime here today with us. Becky has been working with us for the last 6-7 months. She was brought in by the company when they started looking at Holyoke. There's a lot of different ways that they came to Holyoke and got on their view, but we're really excited about that. Obviously, you'll also probably recognize Pat Beaudry. He is now a representative for Sublime Systems on working their sort of community work, if you will. But here we are looking at a very large swath of underutilized property. Could be considered shovel-ready, and I think that's one of the things that Sublime was interested in. Again, bringing in the green energy and looking at a significant $150 million investment, hopefully creating up to about 70 jobs. We've been working with Mass Office of Business Development to also move this project forward because in addition to local incentives, there's also state incentives that are tied to that job creation. And we've also sort of been very mindful of the conversations we've had with you over the last few months, but over the last, at least for myself, the last 2.5 years. And so one of the things we did in the schedule, if you look at the schedule, and I think it's a very conservative schedule, it's 5 years, so it doesn't go into anything too extraneous, too over the top, to go out too long. But we also recognize the need that the city has. And so the first year, if approved tonight, the first year would be a 90% stay, if you will, of the taxes. So unlike others that have started with 100%, we, again, with discussions with Sublime and the team there, we really felt that some of that new value needed to be realized in that first year. Also given some of the endeavors that the city's engaged in and seeing some of that new value realized would be really important. Of course, this TIF also doesn't kick in until the company owns the property, so that's another stipulation that's within this agreement. And I think that it really harkens back to our sort of manufacturing background, right? This is the DNA of Holyoke, is manufacturing. This would bring that back. So they've been doing their due diligence, as you can imagine. It's a very significant project, lots of permitting beyond just the city of Holyoke, but they're already talking to Jeff Burkott, our principal planner, and the law department about their submission for their site review. They're already talking to Holyoke Gas and Electric. They're also having conversations with Mass Hire and HCC and STCC to talk about opportunities for young people for jobs and internships. So they're really doing their due diligence and want to be a good community partner. As you know, this is one of the few tools in the toolbox that we have to encourage development here in the city of Holyoke. And again, we think that what we put forward is a conservative, workable TIF agreement. And so for some of the details, obviously John Dijek in my office has more knowledge of this than most and has been able to walk us all through this process. And then, of course, we have our 2 representatives from the company as well. So we're here to answer any questions that you have and hopefully move this project forward, or this TIF agreement forward, to have this project move forward. So I don't know, John, if you wanted to add a few comments too as well to the sort of overall 3,000-foot discussion first.
Yeah, no, I think just thank you, Aaron. I think that was a great summary. I wanted to circulate to the board what is being asked for the board to approve. There was when we initially submitted this, the schedule was undetermined. And since then, and I did email this to Jeffrey, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So the section highlighted is
Thanks.
the section highlighted is the schedule that's being proposed that Aaron summarized. I should add that there's an additional aspect of this which is allowed under the program, which is an exemption on personal property tax, and that came about because as we were having discussions with the company. Manufacturers in Massachusetts apply to have manufacturing status with the State Department of Revenue. Until they have that, once they get that, they are exempt from personal property tax. The company has applied for that designation. They're working to get that, which we expect they will. But to safeguard, if the timing is not right, the request was made by the company to add this first year only 100% exemption on personal property tax. So that's something that was not in the original resolution, but it is highlighted there. So I think I just wanted to mention that. And And a lot of, just to reiterate, I think the company's done quite a bit of community outreach already in the city just to, get folks informed about what the project is and address some of the concerns, get ahead of those and be proactive in addressing them. So I guess I'll stop there. And
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do you want to introduce yourself since you're new to the, so go ahead.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Hi, thanks so much for having me. My name is Becky Gallagher. I'm the head of project development and strategic sourcing at Sublime. Really happy to be here. Really grateful for all the help that we've gotten from John, from Aaron, and from all of these wonderful community organizations that Pat has spearheaded our communication with. So happy to answer any questions that you guys have. TIFs are new to me, and we've worked hard with the city to hammer out all of the details, and I don't think anything's obvious. So happy to dig in if anyone has a question.
Great, thank you. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. So I'm way out of my wheelhouse when it comes to business financing, but I just want to put what I'm understanding out there for any feedback. So the way I'm understanding it is that this TIF, should we approve it, and with the state approval as well, this will help with financing to get this company going and get this business off the ground as well, right? So we then have sort of a partnership approach, if you will, going on to actually sort of kickstart the project. Would that be a?
I think that's a great sort of,
reasonable
I
summary?
think I even maybe used something similar when we were talking about another one before. We obviously don't have funds as a city to give to any development, right? I mean, I'm getting calls all the time, what can the city do for us? It's like, well, what do other cities do for you, right? There's no big pot of money that we have to get incentives to give people to come to the city of Holyoke. So we try to adjust some other things. So TIF is one of those, it's part of the portfolio, part of the financial portfolio. I think investors like to see that the city is open to that. It's another box that's checked on that long financial portfolio. But yeah, exactly. We're not, it's the one tool in the toolbox, as you always say. But yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's a partnership.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Bartley?
Okay, I won't be as quick. So first of all, everything's through the chair, okay? So I don't have to keep saying through the chair. Becca, what is strategic sourcing? Say that title again. I want to understand what that is.
I shouldn't have even said the second half. So project development, that's all the stuff that Pat's been doing and that I've been doing, all the non-engineering components of getting this plant from 0 to 1. So like the purchase and sale on the land and working with City of Holyoke on this TIF. That's all the project development stuff. And then this strategic sourcing piece is that because we're a cement company, we need inputs to our plant. And we have to source those inputs, basically rocks. And so where do we get the rocks from? How do we get them to our site? How much do the rocks cost? How much does the trucking cost? Oh, should we do rail maybe? Those types of questions are the strategic sourcing part of my brain.
And how will those rocks be getting to the City of Holyoke?
That's a great question. We have a traffic study. Be happy to share that with you. Our current plan is probably trucking, but we have chatted to PVRR, which I understand is in the process of changing hands, but there's only 1 mile left to get from where PVRR ends to our site. So we're certainly investigating that exciting opportunity, but it's not costless. And my understanding is that typically for short distances, we might source from nearby quarries as near as 30 minutes away. It might be more economic to roll trucks. What we're looking at is to do that on the Connecticut River side of the canal, so that we won't be rolling them through the flats. So we'll be coming up Water Street, not Canal Street, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a conversation too about that. The irony is unbelievable about the quarry, but I'll let Mr. Vega explain that to you down the road. The rail part, we heard prior counselors talk about funding from the federal government, and we noticed that about $65 million put into a train station in Springfield. $108 million is going to come to fix rail from Worcester to Pittsfield, or Worcester to Springfield, actually. So I'm hopeful that Aaron will help you connect with Mr. Neal to maybe figure out a real extension of one whole mile. You know, maybe something could be figured out from that, as opposed to having trucks barreling down the city of Holyoke loaded with cement. Now it's unbelievable that one of the things that our neighboring communities do, they're attempting to stop liquid gas from coming to the city of Holyoke on a pipeline. The good news is, well, depending on what Governor Healy does with it, the good news is that and there's zero opposition where it's going to be sited on Muller Road here in Holyoke, zero. In fact, there's support for it. But because our neighbors wouldn't allow us to extend a pipeline, our friends in Longmeadow and East Longmeadow and Agawam, well, good for them. But now we're at the point where we can truck it in, and that would allow us to remove our gas moratorium. So we get the fact that there's a lot of trucks, but we hear these arguments all the time about Wards 1 and Ward 2 and asthma rates and all this other stuff going on. And now here we are, I get the fact you're creating 70 jobs, but I haven't heard one comment from anybody about the environmental impacts of having these diesel trucks pounding through Holyoke. I haven't heard of one word about that till now. Now that's an interesting concept. That hasn't been discussed, but yet we're going to come around here another time about how all the people in Ward 1 and Ward 2, they have to bear the burden of it, and they're all getting asthma and other impacts. And we know what happened with the buses too. Becca, we don't have busing from certain parts of Ward 1 to school. Of course, what everybody forgets is that decision was made by two people exactly, the mayor and the superintendent. Two. Nobody else made that call. But that was $1 million they cut from the budget. Now that's fine, that's their call. We have nothing to do with that. But these are other thoughts that have to be kept in mind when we're going to have a bunch of trucks, big trucks, which constantly get jammed into the railroad bridge, which it just happened again last week. So, I mean, these are really serious things that have to be considered, not just your 70 jobs and the $150 million of investment. So I'm going to ask you to consider that. But this is rhetorical for right now because there's no way you're going to answer these things. I get it. Mr. Dijak, you mentioned, now this has caught me off guard, but you mentioned something about a state law relative to personal property tax. What is that?
As a manufacturer, a company can apply for the exemption from personal property tax. And there's a process to do that through the Department of Revenue, which the company has already started. There are some criteria that need to be met to get that designation, need producing product and things like that, but the company, I think, is well on their way to getting that designation. This just adds some protection for them, which was on their request, that in the first year, if this designation is not received, that this program also allows for this exemption.
Well, I don't support that. This is out of left field at the last second, and applications can be denied as well. Now, I don't have any evidence of a track record relative to this, so I'm not going to support that part. So now we were already talking about this and the TIF. I do support it. I want to see it happen, but when you throw something like this in it, not you, John, you're the messenger. But when the entity throws it in at the last minute, I don't like it. And on top of that, there's no guarantee they're going to get their exemption. There is a guarantee that Holyoke won't get any money, and that's kind of the point of it. So I for one, would not want to support that. One last, maybe one or two last things, just through my friend Becca. The financing for this project, where's that coming from?
Yeah, so the financing is still underway. We applied for 1/2 of the capital expense of the project to be funded by the federal government, and we should hear back on that in the next month or two. And then we have the rest to fund between mostly private investors. So this might be venture capitalists that are interested in our Series B fundraising. That's going to happen in Q1 of next year. Growth infrastructure funds that are interested in earlier stage companies, but that are specifically focused on infrastructure for first of a kind plants. So we spoke just last week in New York with some potential funders. One was Breakthrough Energy Catalyst. They're a grant-making arm of Breakthrough Energy Ventures, which is Bill Gates' big climate venture fund. So Catalyst would be one option. Another one is Grok Ventures. They're a venture capital firm out of Australia. They thought they might be interested to fund us about $20 million. There's another Series A funder, Lower Carbon Capital. They pledged in our federal grant that they would consider funding us up to $25 million in the Series B, which again would go directly to financing the capital expense of this plant. So do we have it all figured out with all our T's crossed and our I's dotted? Not yet. But we have a good funnel that's really wide at the top, much wider than we need to finance this whole plant. And we're confident that as that winnows down and, you know, the rubber meets the road for folks, it's still going to end up with the amount of money that we need.
And this is constantly communicated to OPED and, you know, John and Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the reasons we're working with Pat. He's here every day. I've come in about once every 2 weeks, but we're certainly on the phone even more frequently than that. Because, I mean, as much as we are interested, of course, they're interested on behalf of the city. Is this really going to happen? Our jobs are on the line, but for you guys, you know, the city is on the line and this parcel is on the line. So it's very real, and we take that extremely seriously.
Well, speaking of well, first, I'm glad you have Pat. Yeah, he's a great addition to your entity. And speaking of city tax, I mean, well, look, just having you come in here, the city able to get a tax scofflaw, 101,000 plus another 5,000. So at least that's somewhat helpful. Now, this particular party's been a wonderful friend of mine, and it's a great entity. I'm saying that half kiddingly, but the $106,000 is real. So that's just important to note. Just to my friend Aaron, this is somewhat complicated, Aaron. So how is this, once we pass this, assuming we do, which I'm confident we will, I mean, it's going to get complicated for not just you, but for the assessor and the tax collector, and there's dates, and there's all sorts of things that have to be triggered. And
Thankfully, we, again, the communication's been at the table the whole time. We've worked with our assessor, Deborah Nell, and sorry, I'm just forgetting the new... Laura, thank you. Yep. So we've been...
That's right. That's not her married name, but Laura Wilson.
Okay.
But she's married.
And so, yeah, and in fact, I mean, so they manage other TIFs, as you know, the Marquardt Ford TIF. I think we only have, 2 or 3 that are active right now in the last email that went to you. Yeah, I mean, those dates, thankfully it falls in the fiscal years, so I think that those dates are, easier to manage.
Although I saw this starting in January, so it doesn't start in the fiscal year, it starts on the calendar year.
It starts in the calendar year. It starts in the calendar year. Yeah, that's the only change with this one. Yeah, so we've talked to Deb, our assessor, about this. She made a comment that I was like, she made a comment that I don't think that would float this way. She's like, we should just do 100% for 5 years and be done with it. I was like, well, I don't think that they can get that passed, but it's a little bit of work on their behalf for sure. So, yeah, so that's why we put that forth, that schedule. So we've been communicating with them right along, law department, treasurer, tax collector, and assessors for sure. Yeah.
Okay, and then just go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to add, two things. One is I don't know how many discussions we had with the assessor about going back and forth about how this will work, and so they're a critical component in making this apply properly. I just wanted to mention the part about the personal property tax. That's also been something that we've discussed with weeks with not only the assessor but the law department and as well as Sublime. It hasn't come to the council just because it was something that surfaced 3 or 4 weeks ago. As the company was, the timing, and this was just a safeguard.
I can speak to it if that would be helpful. So the personal property tax exemption is something that any manufacturer can get through the Department of Revenue. So all things being equal, we would seek to apply for that manufacturing classification from the Department of Revenue after producing our first ton of cement at the pilot plant on Water Street. Then it takes 1 year at the Department of Revenue, similar actually to the sort of delay that is typical at the assessor's office and what happened for the TIF too. It takes the Department of Revenue 1 year before that personal property tax exemption takes effect. Once it takes effect, then your personal property, which is basically everything inside the walls of the buildings, we have 2 buildings on this parcel, everything inside those walls, our tanks, our reactors, all the stuff that's going on is all exempt from personal property tax. That was our initial plan. But when we talked to the Department of Revenue, they said, you know what, you can actually apply now, because in Somerville, we have a pilot plant that's running, and it is capable of producing 250 tons per year. So it's just a little more, our CEO calls it a pilot plant for ants. It's a cement plant for ants. It's small, but it's real. And we just produced 2 weeks ago our first 10 bags of Sublime cement. So we are already a manufacturer. And so what we're trying to do here is a little bit of a belt and suspenders approach. We want to apply now, and our application is in, and it's actively being considered as of yesterday or Friday. I just checked with my contact again. So my hope is that based off of our activities at the pilot plant, we will already be considered a manufacturer as Sublime Systems Incorporated, and we will already go into this project with that exemption. However, if the pilot activities, because again, it's so small, if those pilot activities aren't enough to qualify us as a manufacturer, we will go into this first year with roughly, I don't know what Deb's last assessment was, but call it $100 million of personal property. And for that first year, that's going to be taxed at the Massachusetts income tax rate of 8%. So that's pretty significant. That's $8 million or so of taxes that we would face in our first year as a business. So that's the nature of the request that came through to the city, and I apologize, that was on me for it being last minute, but that's the intent, is to, in the spirit of the TIF, which is to give upfront relief to the company, because we're so sensitive to those upfront costs, to also extend that kind of spirit to these personal property taxes, which it's a guarantee that once we start manufacturing, we absolutely will get a manufacturer's classification. There's no question. We're 100% going to be a manufacturer. We're manufacturing cement. It's a classic kind of no questions asked type of stamp by DOR. It's just that delay of that first year in the case that we're not classified now on the basis of the pilot.
Let me put this question to Aaron, because Aaron was our former state representative. Aaron, who because maybe I'll change my tune. So the personal property tax, when it's collected, that goes to the Treasury or that goes to the city of Holyoke?
Both, I believe.
Right. You see how that's not fair? See how that's not fair? So DOR, if it was just going down to Boston, I would have changed my tune in a heartbeat.
Well, that's a good question.
Because that's frustrating to me, because the DOR just gets to make the call completely about the city of Holyoke. Just they can just cut us off, are they going to supplement us for what they cut off? No, they're not. So we know that answer. So to me, that's unfair. That's just imperialism, and I'm just going to make. I'd like to have that answer. So I mean, I'm sure we're going to pass this tonight. And then if we could get a communication to the chair, just relative, I know that's a complicated one.
I hear you.
But maybe somebody in Boston could help us. My final thing, as we say in Holyoke, I want to, whether Pat or Becca, this is a fairly unique situation. I mean, it's kind of a unique business, but I'm glad to be a tiny, minuscule part in the decision making here. But I'd like to hear more about it. And frankly, when you read the application, you see an MIT professor and an MIT fellow, and I'm not saying that's Westfield State, but it's good to have a couple. It's good to have a couple MIT people come to Holyoke, like we have over here on Appleton Street. So why don't we hear a little more about what the actual company?
Yes, this has been my sort of science lesson of the last couple months. I didn't realize how bad for the environment making cement was, and of course it's everywhere. And so they've taken that really almost inconceivable impact that cement has on this environment, and are addressing that. And again, coming from Greentown Labs right here in Massachusetts, and this is the kind of thing we want to see. You can research out in Boston, but build it here in Western Mass. But maybe a little bit on the technology.
Yeah, sure. I'm a renewable energy background person, so like all of us, I'm new to the chemistry piece, and me and Pat, I would say, we're the business people, and the rest of the 40 employees are all PhD chemists. I mean, they're really in the lab all day, every day. So, okay, cement is responsible for 8% of worldwide carbon emissions. That's huge. It's the second most used material in the world after water. we just went to a field pour the other day, and they poured it like water into the foundation for the Boston Children's Hospital. I mean, it's just coming out of pipes. They rolled 45 trucks that day, just full of the cement, the ready mix things, just pouring them in. So you can see just what a prolific use the world has, especially in the developing world, for cement. The carbon emissions come from two sources. One is that cement is made using limestone, which is calcium carbonate. When you break apart the limestone to make the cement, the carbon part of the calcium carbonate is released into the air as carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas. The second part is that to process the limestone in that way, you need to have these superheated kilns. And those kilns can't get hot enough with typical electric resistive heat, like, you know, your little space heater. Can't get hot enough. So you have to burn coal. So you're burning coal, and you're burning something that has carbon dioxide in it. So those two things combined, each one is about half of the carbon emissions. Sublime's unique IP, our secret sauce, is to use rocks that are not limestone, non-carbonate minerals. We're looking at JS Lane in Westfield. They have basalt. Basalt doesn't have any carbon in it. So when you break it apart, you can do whatever you want to it, but it's not going to release any carbon dioxide. The second piece is that our electrochemical process, our MIT lab process, our mad scientist process can be done at room temperature. So you don't need a kiln. You can use it with the Holyoke Dam. You can use it using solar, you can do wind, and actually water is the best one because our plant needs continuous operation. And, you know, the sun doesn't shine in the middle of the night. So those are the two components to the Sublime IP that really allow us to reach carbon neutral or ultra low carbon cement. So yeah, I don't know, Pat, anything else? Okay, that's sort of the core of it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. So next I have Counselor McGivern, and then I had Counselor Rivera, and then Counselor Bacon.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody, for the presentation. Very detailed up front. I thank Pat Boudre because I had 3 questions, I think, Pat, and all my questions were answered before we walked into the room this evening. Although I did learn something tonight about the DOR, which doesn't surprise me, but I think we're going to learn a little bit more about that, Councilor Bartley, in the future, because, yeah, I wouldn't go as far as imperialism, but I might have a comment or two, but that's okay. Aaron, I think everything that you presented this evening makes sense, but you said it. This is a tool. It's a tool that makes sense. Pat and I shared this. Becky, it's good to meet you, and I'm going to share it real quick with anybody that's listening. This is about Sublime's investment, $150 million plus into the community of Holyoke. 70 jobs are a plus, could be more down the road, but they're jobs that we don't have. They're taxes eventually, once this agreement runs out, that we're not getting. Matter of fact, there's a little letter here about some back taxes that have to be paid as you purchase the property. That's between you and the seller, right? But the important thing is the investment, new construction, 53 million estimated. Is that in the ballpark? The breakdown, yeah. But the construction part, you know, and the personal property, the DR part does bother me a little bit, but a lot of that is everything inside the building, which we know, and I understand the manufacturing part, but it's also machinery Sublime needs to purchase in order to become the manufacturer that you've talked about this evening. So this tool is just allowing Sublime to put some money into what they're investing into the city, and in the long run, the city wins out. There's no questions there whatsoever. The 100% the first year would not have scared me, but that's okay. You know, another project over here did scare me when I saw it, but we're not going to talk about that tonight.
No, we're not. It's not on the agenda.
Try to fix that.
And I'm glad you said TIF because someone from your office corrected me when I called an STA a TIF, and I know this is a TIF.
This is a TIF.
But it's a great plan. We welcome you. Becky, I do have one. It's a technical question, not so much to do with the TIF, but the process you just described about concrete, does your final product less hazardous to get rid of down the road because of the way you put it together, or is it, concrete is I learned is very hazardous. We talked about paint tonight, which has a lot of issues for the environment, but concrete itself is considered very hazardous when you're trying to dispose of it.
I honestly don't know the answer.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
So let me follow up with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Add, we're actually, this is a continued process to make this the greenest possible cement produced on the planet. And so part of what we're working with is even understanding where other industries' waste byproducts could actually be incorporated into our cement. So there's less materials going into landfills and more that we're able to reuse and regenerate, product that we can build the world with. So it continues to be the hunt to make this the greenest product and the greenest company possible.
And I appreciate that, Pat, and I understand. And you and all the material that was presented this evening is clear. The production of it is green, and that's what's wonderful about. I have another person out there who's not part of this presentation, and I toured the property, and then we talked a lot about green and the importance of what it is to the city. City of Holyoke isn't green just because of St. Patrick's Day. We are the greenest community in the Commonwealth.
We're green before green.
And when you look at all the land we have on the mountain range, and when you look at everything we do, there's no one per capita that does what Holyoke does when it comes to green. Gas and electric puts most of those power companies to bed when we talk about production of power itself. But I was just curious about that because it's, eventually the cement you produce is going to become waste. And then that's a whole another issue, but it is something that, just curious about. No. But I support this for all the right reasons, and thank you for investing in Holyoke.
Thank you. Councilor Rivera, your hand is now down. Are you good?
So I guess I'll say thank you to Pat and Beth. Is it Beth, correct?
Becky.
Becky, my bad. So for reaching out in the beginning and contacting myself and Councilor Rivera, as well as Councilor Valderrama Velez, I believe they contacted you as well, Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti, and kind of trying to keep us up to date with the project. A lot of my main concerns were around the asthma rate, around the fact that we might be trucking a bunch of materials in and around the Flats neighborhood. I'm glad to hear that they're taking the approach of going on Water Street. That makes a lot of sense because it's not necessarily transporting through all of the flats, right? You're going just through a little piece if you're coming across the bridge. But ideally, I think for me, there's still more questions with regards to like the health impact that this could possibly have. Otherwise, the project, the presentation was well, as Mr. McGivern has said, Councilman McGivern had mentioned, and the way that they're trying to involve community and people in the community and different organizations, it's just. To me, it's coming from a caring approach, and that means to me that they want to be a part of the community, and I'm with that. So I support the project for the most part with that, but there's still a lot of questions to me with regards to the health hazards. Even if there's a little bit of a health hazard, I would like to know what it could be and what could the impact could be, if that's possible, even if it's a minuscule percentage. That's one of the things, is just knowing is better than not knowing for me. But thank you, and again, thanks for coming to Holyoke.
Do you want to respond to that, Aaron?
Just real quickly, I know you have other agenda items as well, but and Councilor Barley brought it up, and we brought it up actually when we first started talking to them, was the traffic. And so I know that we're working with the new owners at 111 Mosier to also sort of put together a proposal to expand that rail line. We are working with PVRR on that. There is federal money. I'm forgetting the name of the grant that goes for short rail. IRAP, that's right. So hopefully the feds can help. As you mentioned, they're pointing up for these other things. So I think we can work on that. That would be very good for both these, for that company and for 111 Mosier. And so obviously in the site plan review, we will talk about transportation in and out. And one of the things we also discussed was to sort of get the storage buildings built sooner, soonest on the development, so that maybe we could sort of incrementally start to bring in trucks early on, so it's not like 50 trucks come in when they open, right? Like get those trucks coming in 6 months, 7 months before they open, 2 or 3 a day, so it's less of an impact. So we're talking about all kinds of ways to remediate that impact on the community, for sure.
Thank you, Aaron. Councilor Reagan?
Thank you. I just have to go back because I'm not clear about the 100% exemption on the personal property versus the 90% on the TIF.
It's a real problem.
So I just want to make sure I understand it. The way I was hearing it, it's this or that, right? So if you're a manufacturer on day one, then you're in the 90%. But if you're not a manufacturer, then you need the personal property exemption?
No, it's actually 2 separate exemptions.
Okay, so it's
one is on personal
parallel
property.
path.
Right, so if they, more than likely, just given some of the other support that this company is getting at the administrative level, I can see them getting that designation before this project happens, because they are doing this in Somerville. If they get that exemption, and then we should maybe look to see what other companies have that. If you have a manufacturer, you're exempt from personal property tax.
Okay, so
That's separate. We're just doing that as a stopgate in case DOR says, well, again, regardless of the feelings about the program, but they could say, let's wait till you actually produce that first ton of cement. That's not going to happen until they're here in Holyoke in that first year. So we're just trying to, if they get that designation before that, then there's no question. But the schedule, the 90% is on the personal property with the assessors.
Right, so if the state approved it, we would have no say, which was to the point of Councilor Bartley and Councilor McGivern.
Yeah.
Just because of the way it's
And there's probably,
structured.
right, and there's probably, I'm assuming many of the manufacturers in Holyoke have that exemption, have that designation, which provides them the exception.
All right, I just wanted to make sure I understood it, and it's a parallel thing.
Yep.
But other than that, I just want to comment that questions that I had and feedback that I gave relative to the reasonableness of looking at a TIF and all of that, I think were very well considered. And I think hopefully this will be an amazing project for the company and the city. And so I'm very favorable on it in general.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, 2 quick things. Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, through the chair to Becca, one of the entities we have in Holyoke is Casella, and they are a waste management, privately held waste management company, and a lot of their disposal goes out on rail to way out in New York to Ohio. I mean, wherever else they contract to. So we do have those types of entities railing in or training in, whatever you want to call it, and out all sorts of things. So, I mean, I don't see why this couldn't be discovered, and I kind of hope that it'll get. I'm sure Aaron and John will get cracking on it tomorrow, because I mean, I don't know what, I don't know how you quantify a minuscule environmental impact. I mean, I think it's, you can't quantify it. Look, if trucks are going to be pounding down Water Street or wherever it is, it's going to have an impact, and not only that, it's going to have not just the air quality, but the roads and all this other stuff. I mean, it's just a massive burden. And while this is like the other thing, it's the first time hearing of it. So then just relative to the, I'm going to support this tonight. I'm not going to make a motion to remove it, though I feel like doing it. But I mean, that question just has to be answered. I mean, at least we're going to go into this eyes wide open. And like I said, if it's all going to Boston, well, whatever. But if they're just making a call, carte blanche on a city's ability to collect taxes, I find that to be really something. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McGivern?
So a quick question, seeing we're on this DOR waiver. How long has this waiver for manufacturing been around? Do we know?
Many years. It's not new.
Many years being decades?
Decades, yeah. I'd have to double check, but it's been here as long as I can remember. There's a.
I'm curious because, I mean, over the years, Hazen Paper, Whiting, different paper companies, I know, the subject of personal property tax has always used to come up every year in the mayor's industrial committee because of a certain vote this council takes on CIP, every year, where we shift a little bit of the burden now. If DOR is taking the P away from us, that didn't sound too good, did it? If they're taking the personal property away from us, we have to look at the shift a little different. I just want an answer. I'm not.
We'll look into it. I mean, and again, this is new to me too, but I think some of the preliminary conversations, like for some companies that have the designation, the equipment that they use, like you mentioned, to manufacture is exempt, but they might have desks and chairs and the water.
That isn't exempt.
That isn't exempt. So I think that's a lot of work for the assessors and figuring that part out. Like we don't have any say in that.
That might be the answer. Okay.
There's something some stuff I think is exempt from the exemption, and that doesn't qualify for the exemption maybe.
Okay.
Probably.
And the one thing I did learn is it's not an automatic. You have to go through a process to even get considered for this and really show that you are producing a product.
But in the meantime, I still support the tip with the 100% because you got to buy the machinery or you're not going anywhere, and it's just a tool to help. It makes sense on that end too. But thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, just one more. I mean, hopefully Laura can help you get to the bottom of this question somewhat efficiently, and you can send a communication to the chair. So,
absolutely.
I mean, I'm just.
Yep.
That's something. All right. So I'll make a motion to support the TIF resolution to the full city council.
And I will second it.
All right. Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Great. So
Thank you.
the next full council meeting is Tuesday, October 11th, or 3rd.
Do we have to do anything with this?
I'll make a motion to take 7 off the table.
Do we have to do anything? Is that what we're approving, the resolution? I'm just clarifying if we need language
We're
that
approving
speaks
this.
about the resolution.
The resolution we just had.
Just that.
Okay.
That was my motion. Support the.
Okay, that it's the resolution.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
because
was-
we had this and then we had, and there, I guess I
Yeah,
identical.
this is the update. No, this is the updated one with the numbers on it.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
friends.
I just wanted to be sure.
So I made a motion to take 7 off the table.
Motion
Second.
made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. So item 7, thank you, OPED team, thank you, friends.
Right.
Is filed by Councilor Bartley. Holyoke Police Department and Mass DOT work to promote a pedestrian safety plan for the employees contracted to work at the Soldiers Home. Mass DOT expects to have up to 300 employees working on site for the next 3 years. The employees are scheduled to park at Lot Q at HCC during that time. So this was referred to the Police Department, Mass DOT District 2, and obviously this committee for a follow-up. And this evening, we are joined by our Police Chief Pratt and Tim Senecal from Walsh Brothers. I believe you are the project manager for the project. Is that correct? Oh, you're on mute, Tim. Project Superintendent, my apologies. Thank you.
Yep.
Great, perfect. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Chief, for being here as well. I'm going to let the maker of the order just introduce the order, and we'll go from there.
Yep, just one second.
Sure.
I won't be as long as prior pregnant pause, but I just want to make a note to myself if I could for half.
I get it.
A second. Okay. First of all, just a point of personal privilege to the to HPD and the chief before we even get into this. Quite a weekend for the Holyoke Police Department. So the women and men of the police department should be applauded for
three unbelievable situations. One at Stop and Shop in Kmart Plaza area, one on Route 91 with our friend from Greenfield dragging a Mass State Trooper and then leaving, and then one with picking up a fugitive from justice on the island of Puerto Rico. So that was all orchestrated and aided by HPD. So that should not go unnoticed. Relative to this matter, the Linda, myself, a few other counselors attended a hearing at the home, kind of a pre-construction hearing, and it's I don't know why I said 3 years, because it's going to go on for at least 5 years. So that's got to be amended to say 5 years. So, and that's assuming that they do it on time. And this is a Commonwealth of Mass, so let's fingers crossed it even happens. But so when we heard that they're going to have up to 300 employees, I'm sure very few are going to be carpooling, going over to Lot Q at HCC, and then walking from Lot Q, or however they're getting from Lot Q to the Soldiers' Home when they're at the construction peak. There are no sidewalks on the west side of Homestead Avenue. There is one crosswalk, of which I'm aware, at the main gate, and that has been a cluster bomb going on almost 8 years. We've been trying to get a pedestrian signal up there with the city of Holyoke, so that's been fun. And then still not there. And try to get some cooperation from the HCC officials, which has been non-existent. So with all that said, Dave, where are we, and Mr. Sonical, where are we relative to pedestrian safety? And hopefully you can speak to it as the years go on. But where are we at this stage?
Oh.
Well, Mr. Chief Pratt is muted, and Mr. Senical, I can't tell.
He was there.
I'm here. I just thought he was going to talk first.
I did too, yeah.
So currently we're parking in Q lot. We've got site activities going on right now. We're probably running approximately almost 30 people on the site. Things will ramp up in December and January when concrete construction starts going, and then it'll move into steel construction in late spring, early summer. And at that point, that's when you'll start to see an influx of all the other MEP trades, carpentry trades and stuff like that, and the manpower will start to climb. As of right now, we've had no problems with parking in Q lot. I know they've had some break-in issues on some vehicles that were being left there over the weekend I heard about. But outside of that, I haven't heard of any issues so far.
Chief?
Yeah, quite honestly, being called to this meeting is really the first concern I've heard about it. I'm pretty familiar with Q-Lot, and, the Soldiers' Home. I know that, I don't know, there's 30 or so employees they have going already. I don't know what has been, if there's even been an issue. I know, obviously the way you would go is out of Q-Lot, across Homestead, and then you're on the sidewalk. So I'm assuming that the construction workers and their fluorescent vests are getting across the street okay. I don't know, once we get an influx and it goes up, are they, running some kind of shuttle from over there? I haven't heard anything as far as a concern or a problem. As far as the cars breaking into, we certainly could put that on. The college kind of has their own security that patrols up there, and technically the college is believe it or not, falls under the jurisdiction of the state police. So, but we assist as well up there when needed without a problem.
When they're done. Thank you. Councilor Bartley and then Councilor Bacon.
Yeah, so what's the plan, guys?
Okay, so Chief, I appreciate that you know about this till tonight, and right now we're in the early days, but you think we just, and Mr. Seneca, you got 30 people crossing the street. Okay, but at some point you're gonna have 300. And that is a heavily trafficked roadway. I'm glad they got fluorescent vests on. I don't think that really makes, that's not the relevant part. The relevant part is it's a heavily trafficked roadway and you're gonna have a lot of people crossing the street. And so what are you doing, if anything, to ensure pedestrian safety, whether it's at 7 in the morning or at 3 p.m. when they go home? And what plan is in place so we can get ahead of this before something unfortunate happens? That's it.
Right now, I've done this on other projects where we've had remote parking at different places in the state and have never really come across, thank God, any pedestrian problems with employees coming in and out of parking lots to get to job sites. I know some of the subcontractors will more than likely provide vans for their guys, so they're shuttling guys up to the site, and we'll find parking for those type of vehicles on the site, so guys can get up and down. Foremen, to a certain extent, are gonna be allowed to park on site for some of the bigger firms, and as everybody's aware, that is a pretty tight site. We've squeezed the home from some of their parking, obviously with the amount of space we're taking up, and they're not really gonna realize their full parking capabilities until the whole project is done, which includes tearing down the existing home and finishing out the parking lot on the south end of the site.
Councilor Bacon?
Thank you, Chair Ramboletti. I want to thank Councilor Bartley for filing this order because this project is happening on the line between Ward 3 and Ward 5, and I've received some calls relative to concerns about the pedestrians in the area. And I think possibly those concerns are highlighted because we've been reading about so many pedestrian accidents and fatalities in the surrounding towns. And so I think what we're really just trying to do is to be proactive and see if we can't have a plan that when folks are reaching out to us with these concerns, we can have some response that indicates that there has been consideration given and we're acknowledging the risks that are out there on the roads today and just doing everything we can to be preventative in our approach. So I really think that's where this is coming from. It's certainly not to, hold any of the development back, but even if people know there will be, say, for an example, as you gave, a shuttle program or that opportunity for people, any information we can tend to give people when there's a big change going on helps just in general to keep things smooth for the community. Because change is hard even when we want it, right? That's right. So thank you, and any feedback you can give us in that regard as things ramp up would be greatly appreciated.
Yep. Thank you. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Chair. I might have a solution to offer, but in the way of background, I just want to take everybody back to 1974, when, as a freshman at Holyoke Community College in January, the campus opened up. And my good friend Paul Cassidy and I were receiving some student aid that you had to work for. So when we went into the office, they said, well, you guys are majoring in law enforcement. Why don't you complement our campus police, be part of the security force? We said, great. And they gave us some walkie-talkies and a nice little shirt and a jacket. And they said, all right, now you're in parking detail. Now, it's January of 1974, and I think the president of college could tell you, it was still Dr. Frost, that the parking lots were dirt. The first 2 weeks were great. We're outside. It was sunny. It was wonderful. When the rain came the third week, we were inside getting coffee at the student union with our walkie-talkies. But the suggestion I got to offer Mr. Senecal, and I think, being the fact that it is a state-run community college, obviously, even back then until this day, the college runs a shuttle program. And I think with a little bit of cooperation, some of the employees, when it gets into a heavy period, could be transported easily across the street by that program. Back when we were there were 2 or 3 vans. I don't know what it is today. I think the vans are actually bigger today because they also have buses that pick up people and drop people off, students downtown, and bring them up there. So I think the vehicles are there. The state, certainly can work together and, if necessary, cooperate to get some people across the street in the heavy, the peak hours when there's a lot of traffic on Homestead. But the parking lot's no longer dirt, but Q was still a long walk to the main campus. And even though the main campus is bigger, it's still a long walk. So might not be a bad idea.
Great. Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, I really appreciate the comments. So I'll just go through the chair again to my friend Mr. Senecal and the Chief of Police. Regardless of whether you heard about it before, you heard about it now. And regardless of whether they've crossed streets, Mr. Senecal, at other jobs, they didn't cross Route 202 in Holyoke with 18-wheelers barreling down there during all the daylight hours, and never mind the myriad cars for the students at HCC. So I'm glad you had other projects that worked out, but we've had a lot of fatalities around this area in terms of pedestrian traffic. So I'm going to ask you to talk to Mr. Fazio, talk to the Chief of Police, and figure out a way to get back to us with a game plan relative to this, whether it's the shuttles or whether it's some other way to do this. And by the way, how are they getting there? Once they cross Homestead, are they going up Fairmont? Do you know?
It's a 7-minute walk. We've had people do it, that it takes to get up. Most of them are walking up Fairmont. Again, in my past experiences, I think you'll see some folks put a bike in the back of their vehicle, park in Q lot, and ride their bike up the hill. I've seen plenty of that over the last few years because most of the projects you work on now don't have parking available for all the construction workers. And we also have a website that shows the progress of the job too.
Okay, so let me rephrase it. Are you going to consider having some kind of a pedestrian safety program once you ramp up in December and months going forward? Is that something we're going to consider and work with Chief Pratt and Mr. Fazio?
We can, I can discuss that with DCAM and the police department, yes.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest to the chair and to the committee, I would like to table this in committee for now. I would like Mr. Senecal and the chief or Mr. Fazio, and good luck getting hold of Mr. Fazio. I've got 5 emails into him, 0 response yet. Hopefully you can get back to us because, as Linda said, as Joe said, we've been here in the city more than a minute. And we've seen more than our share of accidents and problems on Homestead, including fatalities. And that's without the 300 people crossing the street for months at a time. So I just wish you would just seriously, very seriously consider it. And as Linda said, it's not to be punitive, it's just to be proactive. And if you take it in that vein, I think that we'll all figure out a pathway forward. So that's it. Just motion table, and maybe we can take it up again in January, February.
I'll second that.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved.
A motion
So-
to adjourn.
Great.
Second.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'll get you out of here.
Appreciate it.
Trapped in her Get rid of that cord.
Re-